Right, let's dive straight into it then. So, the Great Firewall of China. It's both a legislative framework and a piece of technological engineering that the Chinese government uses to control internet access domestically. Essentially, it's a massive system that censors and blocks certain parts of the internet, particularly anything the authorities deem sensitive or politically challenging.
Sensitive, like, topics they'd rather people didn't know about, yeah?
Exactly. The way it works is fascinating, though. Think of it like this. Imagine the internet traffic is a stream, and they've created a series of checkpoints. They use methods like packet inspection and DNS spoofing, which is when they intercept your connection and redirect it to an entirely wrong address.
Wait, hold on. So you're saying they can, what? Literally just hijack your search and send you somewhere else? That's wild.
Absolutely. And then there's IP blocking, where they can flat out block an internet address from being accessible, and something called active filtering. That means their technology is actively scanning for particular keywords or content and preventing access to it in real time.
Wow, that's like next level monitoring.
It really is. Now, this system isn't just about censorship, though. It also gives an advantage to domestic internet services over foreign ones. Websites and apps like Google, Facebook, and even Wikipedia. Completely blocked. And in their place, you have homegrown versions like Baidu and Weibo.
Ooh, okay. So you're creating like a parallel online universe, yeah? One where everything has to fit their rules.
Exactly. And it has enormous effects. Studies suggest around 311,000 domains have been blocked by the Great Firewall. That's reshaped the way people in China experience the internet, tailoring it to government-approved narratives while severely limiting access to outside information.
31,000? That's huge. And I mean, this doesn't just stop at websites, right? It's apps, tools, it's all fair game.
Yes, everything from search engines to messaging platforms, even VPN tools. Those are actively being crushed or handicapped. It's a monumental effort to filter and control the information landscape, and they've really perfected the operation over the years.
I think perfected just gave me chills. But honestly, I want to know how on earth they even came up with this system in the first place. Like, how do you even start something this complex?
That's a great question. To really understand how something this complex came to be, we need to rewind to the late 1990s. This was the time of the Golden Shield Project, a massive initiative by the Chinese government aimed at building not just a firewall, but an entire system for monitoring and controlling internet usage across the country.
Wait, the Golden Shield? That sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? But in reality, it was incredibly deliberate. They started small, but it quickly became clear that the internet was this massive, unpredictable force. Around the same time, you had incidents like the Tiananmen Square massacre, which really shook the government. That event solidified their fears about dissent and showed them just how much of a threat unfettered information could be to their control.
So this wasn't just about tech. This was political, full stop.
Exactly. And alongside that, in 1997, they passed a law called CL97. Now, this legislation laid the foundation for internet regulation, dividing cybercrimes into two categories: crimes targeting computer networks and crimes carried out over them. It gave them the legal framework to go after anyone distributing material they considered harmful, whether harmful meant politically sensitive, morally questionable, or just outright critical of the government.
Right. So they had their legal tools. And the internet, it was still pretty new then, wasn't it?
It was. The internet in China had only really started to grow in the mid-90s, and the government wasted no time in trying to control it. But here's something interesting. The term Great Firewall was first coined in 1997 by Jeremy Barmay, an Australian sinologist. The name stuck because it perfectly captures what it is, this combination of digital technology and the metaphorical Great Wall of China, both designed to keep things out.
Oh, that's clever. And weirdly poetic for something so calculated.
Poetic maybe, but also effective. By the early 2000s, the groundwork was complete. The firewall didn't just block sites, it shaped the entirely separate internet landscape we see in China today. And all of it flowed from the government's ideology, this belief in what they call internet sovereignty.
Internet sovereignty. That's just their way of saying, if it's inside China's borders, we get to control it. Yeah?
Exactly that. And if you think about it, it's not just about protecting their system, it's about reinforcing their narrative. The firewall doesn't just block, it filters, it redirects, it warns. And most importantly, it makes people self-censor. The fear of crossing the line is almost as effective as the line itself.
So, from the beginning, this was never just a tech thing. It was about power and control. That's heavy.
It is. And that weight is felt by anyone trying to challenge or bypass it. It's not just an engineering marvel, it's a tool of authority. And the methods people have developed to fight back, they're just as fascinating.
And speaking of fighting back, let's dive into how people are challenging the Great Firewall. One of the most popular methods is using VPNs, virtual private networks, which essentially create a secure, encrypted tunnel for data to flow through. But here's the tricky bit. The government actively works to block these tools. They've even made unauthorized VPNs illegal since 2017.
Wait, so if you're caught using one, what happens?
Well, it depends. State-owned businesses and officials can use authorized VPNs for work purposes, but for private individuals using illegal ones. The penalties can include fines, even jail time in some cases. And then there are the tech measures. They've developed ways to identify and throttle VPN traffic, sometimes slowing it to a crawl.
That sounds absolutely exhausting. But surely people find, other ways around it.
Oh, absolutely. People use proxy servers, software like FreeGate and Siphon, and even tools built specifically for bypassing censorship like Tor or Snowflake. The challenge is, the government always seems to be one step ahead. For example, they've created advanced systems that actively probe for these proxy services and shut them down when discovered.
Ugh, it's like a constant game of cat and mouse, isn't it?
Exactly. And here's the thing. The government justifies this massive effort by saying it's to maintain national security and social stability. They argue that controlling the flow of information prevents things like dissent, protests, and what they see as chaos.
But let's be honest, that control comes with some serious downsides, right?
Without a doubt. Critics argue it's a massive blow to free expression and access to information. Imagine growing up in a system where you can't access the full internet. No Wikipedia, no YouTube, no Google. You only see what's approved, filtered, or downright rewritten to suit a specific perspective.
That's hard to even wrap your head around. And it doesn't just stop at information, does it? I mean, think about the impact on education, innovation, creativity.
Exactly. Whether you're a student trying to research a global topic or a company needing open internet access to innovate, these restrictions are a massive hurdle. On a personal level, it's about control of your worldview. And, there are people alive in China today who will only have experienced the internet through this hyper-controlled lens. That's a profound shift, not just for individuals, but on a societal level too.
Yeah. I mean, I read a story about a young Chinese student. They were trying to research a historical event, Tiananmen Square, and they literally hit blank walls online, time and time again. Eventually they got creative. They used a VPN at the risk of being caught. But imagine needing to sneak around just to learn what happened in your own country.
That sums it up, doesn't it? Control like this doesn't just limit access to information. It reshapes how entire generations see the world. And that's what makes the Great Firewall so powerful and so controversial.
It's heavy, but honestly, it's also inspiring to hear how people don't give up. Even against all that, they find ways to resist, to keep reaching for freedom on the other side of that wall.
Absolutely. Despite everything, resistance shows just how strong the human spirit can be. And that's the real heart of this whole situation, isn't it? The tension between control and freedom, and the lengths people will go to for truth. It's well, a lot to think about.
It really is. And on that, let's wrap this up. Thank you for joining us today. Wherever you are in the world, stay curious, stay informed, and we'll see you next time.